One of the common misconceptions that we hear again and again and again when it comes to EV ownership is that in order to own any kind of plug-in vehicle, you first need to be a homeowner, or at least to rent a home with off-street parking adjacent to your home that you can install a charging station next to, or perhaps having a garage attached to your home. But we've proven lots on this channel that's not necessarily the case. 2 team members at the channel own plug-in vehicles and rent. One of them has no way to charge right now, and the other one used to have a way to charge and then moved and now has basically to rely entirely on public charging infrastructure. But what if there was a way of cheaply and conveniently managing charging expectations for multi-family dwellings? That's apartment houses, condos, anywhere where there's many different people living under one physical address, and where you need to have full control over different charging stations from different manufacturers to ensure that the power demand for a particular building does not exceed the rated power capabilities of the home as it was designed. We've seen lots of different solutions over the years, some of which have relied on smart grid technology, i.e. using a computer inside a charging station to communicate back to the utility company and go, okay, please turn the charging off for this vehicle, or please turn down the charging for this vehicle. But here at Everything Electric in Vancouver, BC, Canada, I'm at the stand of RVE. RVE is different because instead of relying on smart grid technology at the consumer unit level, it's making the whole building smart. Now, this technology is not primarily designed for high-rise buildings, but it does lay the groundwork for what could be a very interesting and smart way to allow multifamily dwelling residents to have EV charging of their choice in their home without restricting their charger choice, while also ensuring that the local grid can meet its demand. And I'm here with David Corbeil, who is the co-founder of RVE. Thank you very much for talking with me. Tell me a little bit about RVE and what we have here.
Hey Nikki, nice to be with you today. So at RVE, since 2015, basically, we've been on a quest to help people get access to charging in multifamily application. Fast forward 9 years, we've helped over 40,000 people to get access to charging, with the first principle of thinking, why is it so easy to charge at home in single families, and how could we use that same approach and apply it to small multifamily building? And that's how we came up with the DCC idea, and we're now introducing the DCC Plus, which is a smart charge controller that enables to first handle the billing automatically through the utility meters, so there's no fight against who's paying for the electricity, and also doing the load management with 3 sensing monitors inside the unit that enables to make sure that we protect the existing infrastructure, whether it's the suites panel or the service, that everything is covered and according to electrical codes.
The hard thing with EV charging is that we're seeing things progress so quickly that the amount of power a charging station is now using for a home is actually going up. So look back a decade. The Nissan Leaf was brand new, and 3.3 kilowatts was about your lot, unless you were really, really fancy and you had a car with a 6 kilowatt onboard charger. Now we're seeing 11 kilowatts becoming the baseline, and some premium models even go up from there. And the challenge, of course, is that charging stations very often are sold with a vehicle. So you go to your Tesla showroom and they sell you a Tesla and they sell you a Tesla charging station. Or you go to your Chevrolet dealer and they sell you a Chevrolet branded charging station. And under traditional models, you then have to sign up through Chevrolet or through Tesla or whoever made your vehicle with your local utility to benefit from some of the energy saving and energy management opportunities that are available with your car's smart tech. This is different. So tell me why this system is better.
Yes, so basically the intent is to optimize the existing infrastructure. So oftentimes the retrofit building have not been built around EV charging. So what we enable to do basically with the hub right here is to put some sensors that looks really more like donuts to monitor what's the actual availability of power depending on the time of day, time of year, and prioritize the different owners to charge depending on that availability of power. So we're using a standard RS-485 communication protocol where we can daisy chain hundreds of units, and from there we can manage the peak from the unit, the building, and then the grid level so that they can benefit for off-peak rates, for example.
So you mentioned the protocol that you use. It's an industry-wide protocol. It's used in battery packs for homes. It's used in solar systems for your home. It's found in industrial applications as well. Now, that means that the utility doesn't have a huge outlay to adopt this system. You're using something that is already part of the industry standard, which means it's lower cost for them to adopt, which means they're more likely to adopt it. What is the outlay for the utility company in accepting something like this?
I think for them, once devices are deployed in buildings, it's a way for them to control one more appliance towards pushing for better usage of electricity. So promoting, off rates utilization of charging or off-peak demand. I think that's the main benefit. And each unit has its own ID. So for the utility, maybe they can give some rewards to each of their customers.
And you said earlier that the system has the capability to prioritize different charging stations based on usage, but also if there is a demand request from the utility to shave, you could actually say, okay, these homes must continue to have power for whatever reason. Maybe the person who owns the car works as an emergency surgeon, right? And they need to have that car charged. But maybe the person who lives next door is a banker and they only need to be in the office, 9 to 5, right? So they don't have to have their car charged at midnight on a Tuesday. When it comes to installing this in a building, you mentioned it can be retrofit. What's the process?
So typically the building owner or the stratas, they need to go through a EV ready plan or energy analysis where they will map out what's the end result to have full electrification. And from there, they can go towards quotes and installation through contractors typically.
And some provinces in Canada and also some parts of elsewhere in the world now have rules that say if you want to modify your electrical installations, you have to also add a smart capability somewhere, and load management. So this falls into that requirement.
Absolutely. There's a lot of rebates and incentives out there, but more and more they will require to have some load management involved. So that we help the grid to involve the EVs and the charging, but we do it in a way that is sustainable.
The key kind of unique selling point of this that a lot of people hopefully will identify is that when this system is installed, it doesn't mean that every unit in a building has to have a charging station, only that it needs to be ready for a charging station. And of course you can have an electrician run a 50 amp cable or a 30 amp cable to each individual parking space so that when someone moves in who is an EV owner, they can either pay to have a charging station installed, hardwired, or they can come along with their own 1450, NEMA 1450 plug and plug in maybe to an outlet in the wall. Presumably this also means that if there are 1450 outlets just sitting in the garage that aren't connected to an EV charger, you can actually turn them off at this point so that someone can't help themselves to free power and everything is billed back. But it also means that customers get to choose the charging solution that's right for their vehicle. So if they have a a car that only can do 6 kilowatts. They're not paying for a 20 kilowatt capable charging station, but the other way around is also possible.
Absolutely. It's kind of the dryer example, right? Typically you'll have a plug already there, but you provide your own dryer. It's kind of the same approach.
From a liability standpoint, is that something that large apartment complexes would rather have than have individual contractors coming in to install one charging station for one person?
I think, every situation is unique, but quite often for renters, it makes sense for the renters to bring their own charger so that the property owner, they don't have to manage that aspect. There's a lot of manipulation around cables. It's easy to leave it on the ground or have something broken. So it makes sense for the property owner to just provide the plug, and then the charger can be handled by the renters.
And because it's tied to the person's electricity meter, and you were saying you could actually co-locate these units with the meters maybe on the other side. So there's not a huge amount of excess wiring that needs to be done, only run to the individual's parking space. Let's talk about the hardware in here. So It looks like we've got, this is a transformer presumably to provide power to this board, and then we've got a couple of relays here. This is really the unique part of your setup, right? The ability to cut power.
Absolutely. So we're using latching relays, and we're switching them every time there's a power cut. We're changing the ones that are turning off at the first. Those are overkill, so they're good for up to 100 amp and good for more than 100,000 cycles. So hopefully they're going to be good for a while. We've been doing this for more than 10 years now, and the reliability on those products is just...
And because this is separate from your charging station, you're not actually building for consumer end price. So you're not building a bargain basement charging station where very often corners are cut and maybe you're not using high quality relays and there are issues. I mean, anybody watching this channel who has a juice box will know, the juice box shuffle where you have to physically bang the charging station to unstick the relays.
You've been there.
These are built with industrial long lifespans in mind, and the end user doesn't buy this. The apartment complex does.
Yeah.
What's the cost to them in terms of return on investment? Is there any studies that you've done based on, does this make a rental property more enticing to potential renters?
I think there's a few financial benefits, but also providing EV charging will bring you better renters and will bring you a different type of community, and that oftentimes have a lot of value for the property owner. This box will cost roughly maybe $1,000 and then a couple $100 to install, and then you're good to go. No recurring fee, load management involved, and voila. In terms of value added, really hard to say. It depends on the context. I think down the road, if you think about how much you would pay for gas, which is maybe $1,500 per year, then you can figure out the ROI that is maybe 2-3 years.
And are there any instances where the utility companies can partner up with the apartment complexes and go, okay, we'll give the apartment complex an incentive for encouraging their tenants to use this?
Correct. Yeah, I think there's a lot of utilities pushing for, as you said, network solutions and load management, because they don't want you to upgrade the service. Right. That would be terrible for the utilities, right?
I mean, literally this afternoon, as we're filming this, there is a peak power event happening back at my house, where my utility company is paying me to not use electricity because of it being a really hot day, and there being a heat wave. And of course you can utilize this technology, but make it seamless for the end user. That also means this is open to non-tech savvy owners, right? You can buy a very basic, almost mechanical charging station, maybe with a relay, the basic safety stuff in. It doesn't need to have a Wi-Fi password. It's not prone to Wi-Fi attacks, and I'm assuming these are generally hardwired in, so they're not like open access point that a hacker can get to. So it's safer from a security point as well, right?
Well, if it's offline, it's the safest way to go. So.
And let's talk about offline, because when we talk about smart grid-enabled products, one of the challenges with smart grid-enabled products is that they often default to not when the internet goes, right? The internet, there's a storm, maybe in Vancouver we're here and there's an earthquake, right? And the local internet is
Rogers is down,
is
like
down,
2
right?
years ago, right?
This can still function when there is a power cut. Tell me how that works.
Yes, so
Not a power cut,
power
an ISP.
outage.
Yeah.
So basically, all our hardware is taking all the critical decisions locally. So think about the full self-driving of Tesla, for example. Everything in terms of safety decisions are made locally on board. That goes the same, I think, for most of the car companies out there. So we took the same approach. From a safety perspective, if the Ethernet cable is cut or there's an outage, everything from a safety perspective will be done the same way.
And of course, it also means if the power does go out, these relays will automatically open and make sure that no power is flowing. But one of the biggest challenges for utility companies when turning the power back on is that initial inrush of current and demand as everybody's equipment turns back on again. You also have the ability to control that, right? To ramp that demand back up.
So we can definitely add a time delay. That's really like a regional thing with different utilities. There's no standard around the way power gets back on, but we do have some time delay options to put the relays back on. If we lose power, we do have a resistor that holds enough energy to open the relays, so that we make sure that if there's a backup power solution that comes into play, we're safe in that.
And there's no, power going where it shouldn't.
Exactly.
Let's talk finally about how many of these units you can accommodate in a building.
Yeah. Typically this solution, the DCC Plus and the Hub, are mostly for low-rise, mid-sized buildings, so typically 7 floors or less. But we've done projects up to 150 units, typically, so it really depends by region, I would say. The bottom line is you need to have accessible and dedicated meters, and typically dedicated parkings. It's just not the solution for public charging, for example. I think there's other alternatives that.
So this is not a solution where you can just turn up and plug into any charger that happens to be free. This requires a prerequisite of there being a parking space that is dedicated to you, which is an entirely different city planning issue.
Absolutely. We would need a different video for that.
Right, but for a situation where a lot of high-rise, mid-rise and small community housing projects where there is a dedicated parking space either underneath the building or adjacent to the building, this is perfect.
That would be a great fit.
And where are you currently installing these?
So we've sold over 40,000 units across North America, so every province in Canada, more than 35 states in the US, available through distribution.
And plans for Europe?
At this point, I would say not next year, maybe in the future, but for now we're focused on North America.
David, thank you so much for chatting to me, and good luck with the rest of the show.
Thank you, Nikki. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for joining me today, and if you've got thoughts, make sure you leave them in our Discord chat room, our Patreon page, our YouTube comment section, or you can reach out to us on Mastodon. Thanks to the amazing list of people scrolling by on your screen right now. They are some of the more than 1,500 people who help make this channel possible through Patreon and YouTube, covering our bills, paying our team, and making sure that we can remain 100% independent. If you'd like to join them and see your name listed here, just follow the links below. There are a range of different tiers you can sign up for, from as little as $1 a month, or if you pay yearly, around $10.08 a year. A massive welcome to our newest supporters: Bree Crockford, CAP, Christian Balal, Everything on a Buy Bagel, Pidge Eon, and Brett Chandler. To join the list and get your shout out, become a paid Patreon member for your moment of fame. If you'd like to support us with a one-off donation, you'll find links below for Ko-fi and Bitcoin donations, and we even have a good old-fashioned P.O. box you can reach us at, the address for which you'll you'll also find below. And if you're in need of some swag, do check out our swag store in the down below. We've got some fantastic content coming right up, so make sure you're subscribed on PeerTube or YouTube, and we'll see you soon. As a reminder, we make new videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you want more, the almighty algorithm thinks you might enjoy this video, but what does it know? We think this one is also well worth a look. See you soon, and as always, keep evolving.